I don't know if you've noticed, but the more time you spend around something, the more normal it becomes. And some of those things can be really, really weird. But after a while, even the weird becomes really, really normal. Now, please don't look anybody in the eye as I say this. But many of you, I imagine, will have a friend who, when you first met them, you thought, they're a bit odd. But now, you've known them a number of years, and even their really odd things actually seem quite normal. I'll give you an example. I have a friend. I'm not going to name this friend. I won't say their name. I wouldn't do that to them. I was in London a couple of weeks ago, and it was a really long day. I got back at about 10:30 at night, quite tired. Walked into my house, put my bags down, and my unnamed friend, I found them lying in my back garden at 10:30 at night, dressed as Anne Boleyn. And the thing about that moment was that because I've known that person for a really long time, it didn't feel weird. I was like, oh, there they are, great. Now, some of us have been around church a really, really long time. And I've got to be honest, some of the things that we do as the church generally are a little unusual. And some of the things particularly that we sing about in songs are quite odd. And so this series, the songs that we sing, we're wanting to unpack some of the things maybe that we sing in songs that are a little bit odd, or maybe that we've sung for years for some of us who have been around, but the words don't really make sense. And I want to give you a few examples of this. First of all, we sing things about being washed in blood. Now, if I went somewhere for the first time and I walked into a room and there was a collection of people singing about washing themselves in blood, I would be backing out the door quite quickly. We also sing lyrics like, set a fire down in my soul. Again, if I walked into a room and all of these people were singing about setting fire to themselves, I'd be thinking, well, this is quite unusual, and I wouldn't necessarily feel entirely safe. Also, we sing about animals a lot, like lions and lambs and eagles, and the reality is most of us in the room don't have a huge amount of experience of those things. But there is one theme that particularly has my attention that I would really like to talk about today with you guys. And that is that it seems like we as the church are expecting some kind of zombie apocalypse to take place. We talk and sing a lot about dead things. It's like, oh, come to church. It's really weird. For example, you called my name and I ran out of that grave. It's weird. If you've come for the first time and you've stuck around, kudos to you. Also, next one. We say, dead things come alive in the name of Jesus. Visually, not appealing in any way, shape, or form. Next thing, this is the sound of dry bones rattling. Again, it's not a Mario reference, strange thing. Next one, come alive, dry bones. You see, we have this thing that we sing about death coming to life, and to be honest, it's a little bit creepy. And today, I'm hoping to unpack that so it is at least a bit less creepy as we sing about it. So we're talking today about this idea of death to life. It's something we sing about loads, and the hope of this Songs We Sing series is that we get into these topics a little bit. Now, before we get into that in depth, I guess there's a premise that we need to start from, and the premise is that you bring with you into a situation who you are. For example, I am possibly, I would hate to point fingers at myself, known as a little bit messy, sometimes unorganized, sometimes odd. I like to bracket those things as whimsical. So I would describe myself in that way. Now, I did say that I am not going to name my friend. I would never do that to them. But here is a picture of myself and that friend. And when we're together, the odd comes out a little bit more. And so it's this idea that where you go, you take who you are with you. This is me and the friend I won't name. And we went and met my friend's parents for lunch at Hever Castle, which, of course, as you all know, is where Anne Boleyn grew up. So we thought it would be really fun, because we were meeting my friend's parents that day, to meet them for lunch in surprise fancy dress as Anne Boleyn and her maidservant. Now, the thing is that her parents clearly know her very well, so they were very, not surprised by the whole thing. But I assure you, everyone around us found the whole thing very strange. But for us, this was really, really fun. This was a great great idea because we can be a little bit odd together and you take with you who you are into any given situation. Now, what does this mean for our theme this morning? Great question. God can't help but be in a circumstance and bring who he is into that circumstance. Now, God is love. He is unconditional love. God is life. And so when he is involved in a situation, when he touches a situation, when we give permission for God to be involved in a circumstance, he cannot help but bring life into that situation. And we sing these songs as Christians. We sing lyrics like this one. Thank you so much. Something comes out of the grave every time I call your name, not because we think there's a zombie apocalypse about to take place, but because we have an experience where something was broken. Our spirits were broken. Our marriage was broken. Our hope was broken. And we invited God into that space where it felt like that thing was dead, and God brought it back to life. And so this is what we're going to spend some time talking about today. In fact, as we read the Bible, like the person the writers and compilers of the Bible were so keen that we understood that this is who God is. This is the fundamental part of his nature. That the very first thing that you experience of God in the Bible is that he is love and he is life. We have this right at the beginning of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He created space, and then he couldn't help but bring who he is into it. He brings life. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters. And then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and then he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day and the darkness night. Evening passed and morning came, marking the first day. God couldn't help but bring life wherever he goes and whatever he's involved in. Now, because he's also a God of love, he made humanity. Because if you're a God of love, you love relationship and need relationship. And so he created humanity as a species to be in a relationship with him. But if you love someone, you have to give them a choice. So like if I came up to you at the end of this church service with a pair of handcuffs, put them on your wrist and went, "We're going to be best friends," you'd be like, "Okay, she is odd. That is not," some of you are going, "Oh, that's not how you make friends." Okay, then. But that's weird. You have to give people a choice. You can't like force yourself on people that you really care about. And so God gave humanity a choice and said, okay, you can do life with God, so with the source of unconditional love, with the source of life itself, or you can do life as God. Now, if you do life with God, you do that in a way where you live in such a way that God designed us. You live in the way that God goes, "I know this is the best way for you to live, and so live this way." But if you live as God, it won't be with me, but you get to pick. And so humanity chose. And we chose to live life as God, to make our own choices. Now, people, I think that God is kind of a bit obsessed with death and punishment, and he's really mad. And I want to bring a different perspective to that for a moment. You see, I don't believe that God threw death at us. I don't think that's true. I think what happened is that humanity chose to step away from the source of life. And when you don't have life, by default, you have death. Let me give you an example. Wonderful Peter is on our production team this morning. If Peter said to me, "Laura, do you want the lights on?" and I said no, then we would get this. Now, did I ask for darkness? No, I didn't. But I did ask for an absence of light. Thank you, Peter, so much. And so when we say we do not want relationship with the source of life, the default that we get then is this sense of death. And when we stepped away from God, humanity was so like intrinsically built to be in relationship with God that I think what happened, and this is like my own wanderings rather than anyone particularly clever saying anything, but this sense of like a trauma wound went through humanity, like not just in that moment, but like throughout time, this separation from something so vital. A trauma wound is an invisible injury left by experiences that overwhelm a person's ability to cope. It shapes your beliefs about yourself and about the world around you. And this initial separation, I believe, did exactly that to humanity. Now, there's a name that we have for this, like stepping away from the source of life and source of love, and the name for that is sin. And so when we talk about this word sin, essentially that's this opting away from God and also like all of the natural consequences that come from that trauma wound and that broken relationship. But from then on, from that moment, humanity knew death. And yes, physical death, like people didn't just like drop dead there and then, but death came into our world. And it's not always necessarily like death. Sometimes it's more like a slow unraveling of life. It's a slow sense of decay. And many of us, I'm sure, will know exactly what this means and what this feels like. It can feel like broken relationships, broken self-esteem. It can feel like poor mental health, like the division of humanity that we see against each other in our current world, our ecosystem breaking down with wildfires and earthquakes, this trauma wound, this unraveling of life just spreads throughout who we are. And so then we have lyrics and sing lyrics like this one. We just sang it. The wages of my sin was death. You knew I couldn't pay the debt. And so this, as humanity, is what we begin to wrestle with. But they talked about a debt in that lyric, this idea of a debt. And so we have chosen to step away from God and step away from the source of light. And in so doing, we have chosen death. And that means that if we are wanting reconnection with the source of love and the source of light, and not just existence, but actual life, then a debt of death needs to be paid. At which point, things feel a bit heavy. But we need to remember that God is love and God is life. And because he is love, he comes after us. And because he is life, he is able to save us. A number of years ago, myself and Andy, we had a dog called Archie, dead now, very sad times. But some of you guys will have been like aware of him. You may have heard the stories of Archie. He was quite a character. And Archie had an obsession with eating bread. He loved bread. The only thing that could rival his love of bread is my own personal love of pizza. And so he wouldn't just he would devour bread, but he also had this really unfortunate thing that came alongside it, that he was wheat intolerant. So it was just a really sad time for him. And what would happen is if he smelt bread, you'd almost see his senses go on and he would just go for it. For those of you who live in the area, you may know Leaso's Park. It's kind of in that direction. And the way that we enter Leaso's Park, you go along a stretch of disused canal. So this is some of it here. And in the summer, it looks lovely. In the autumn, winter time, this basin of the canal is like a bit water, but mainly smush that's made up of duck poo, stinky things, all the bad things in the world. Probably COVID started there. It's a bad place. It stank. And what happened is one day we were walking along the towpath and we saw Archie kind of assume the bread position. Because some lovely person had been throwing bread for the ducks, into here, and they just launched the bread in. And Archie saw his window of opportunity and he took it and he launches off of the side of the canal into the basin of the canal and starts scoffing this loaf of bread. This bread is really bad for him. It's going to hurt him later. It's a really bad life choice on his part. This will do him no good whatsoever, but he doesn't care about that in the moment. He finishes the bread, looks up and realizes that he can't get back to us. He hasn't, and didn't actually, develop the ability to climb ladders. And so then, if we move on to the next one, thank you so much, begins charging up and down the canal, trying to find a way out, covering himself in just grim, really bad things, and he stank, and he was icky. Andy and I are stood on the side of this canal, thank you, babe, for this moment. One of us had to go in and get him. He was not getting himself out of this situation. And so Andy got into this slime and stink and grim. He had to bend down, wrap his arms around stinky, dirty, wheat-filled dog, and hand him to me, who would put him down on the towpath at the side. He could not get himself out of that situation. The only thing that could heal an eternal trauma wound of humanity is the source of life itself. And so, because he loves us, he comes after us. And because he is life, only he is able to save us. And the beautiful thing is that when God came to earth in the form of Jesus, he didn't just come to pay this life debt. He came because he wanted us to see what a life looked like lived out on earth that is love and is life. He wanted to demonstrate that if we are somebody who is fully connected to the creator of the universe, then everywhere that we go, we take that with us. And so you look at the life of Jesus and you see miracles happen. You see like bread and fish multiply, literally life, multiplication. And not only that, but the unraveling of stuff. In that moment was the unraveling of poverty and hunger. You see healings take place where life is brought, but it is the unraveling of illness and sickness. You see dignity brought to people and the unraveling of shame and pain and low self-esteem. And death itself is defeated. But there's one story in particular that I love in the context of this, and that is the story of Lazarus. Now, Jesus was friends with Lazarus, really good friends, and Lazarus died. And a few days later, Jesus turns up to his grave. In John 11, it says, Jesus was still angry as he arrived at the tomb. A cave with a stone rolled across the entrance. Roll the stone aside, Jesus told them. But Martha, the dead man's sister, protested, Lord, he's been dead for 4 days. The smell will be terrible. But Jesus responded, didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe? So they rolled the stone aside. And Jesus looked up to heaven and said, Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me. But I said it out loud for the sake of all these people standing here so that they will believe that you sent me. Then Jesus shouted, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave clothes, his face wrapped in a headcloth. Jesus told them, unwrap him and let him go. I love this story in the context of this topic. Because I think sometimes when you've been around stuff for a really long time, weird stuff becomes completely normal. But I also think when you've been around stuff for a really long time, completely amazing stuff becomes completely normal. Some of us have been around church for quite a while. And there's something about this story that just strikes a chord in me. This man who knew Jesus well, dies and goes into this grave, and Jesus calls out to him to bring him back to life. And I wonder whether for some of us, we have journeyed with Jesus for a long time. Like, we know about Jesus. But actually, there are still things in our life that is like this unraveling of life. There is still death and decay as a part of our lives. Now, whether that's brokenness and unforgiveness, whether it's thought patterns and habits. And what we tend to do as followers of Jesus is go, it's okay, I've got a lovely cave back here. We shove those things in, roll the stone aside, no one can see it, no one can smell it, and we'll just crack on. And I wonder this morning whether for some of us who are followers of Jesus, we could fall into the trap of sitting here and thinking that this theme that I'm talking about today is for people who don't know Jesus yet. But I don't believe that's the only thing. You see, I wonder whether for some of us there are areas of our life that, if we're honest, they stink. Attitudes, thought patterns, and we have managed to put them in this cave, push them aside, and the last thing we want to do with all of that shame is bring it out. But I wonder whether today Jesus stands outside of that cave and he calls that stuff out. He doesn't shy away from it. He's not embarrassed by it. Even in this moment, Lazarus' own sister is like, are you sure you want to bring him back to life? He stinks. Like, he doesn't recoil from that. He welcomes it because wherever he goes, whatever he touches, he cannot help but bring life to. But we have to be bold enough to step out of the cave and bring that stuff to him in the first place. However, there was still this debt of death to pay. And so later in Jesus' life, he goes to the cross and he dies. And it's this reason, it's these stories and these situations that we sing lyrics just like dead things come alive in the name of Jesus. Because yes, he died on the cross, but this is an outworking of every day in our lives. He will speak life and speak love into the everyday moments. And so we go to this chapter in Matthew where Jesus dies. And in the light of what we're talking about today, death to life, this is great. Matthew 27. At noon, darkness fell across the whole land until 3 o'clock. And at about 3 o'clock, Jesus called out with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you abandoned me? Some of the bystanders misunderstood and thought he was calling for the prophet Elijah. One of them ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, holding it up to him on a reed stick so that he could drink. But the rest said, wait, let's see whether Elijah comes to save him. And then Jesus shouted out again and he released his spirit. At that moment, the curtain in the sanctuary of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. This is this moment where reconnection with the source of unconditional love and the source of life is possible again. The earth shook, rocks split apart, and tombs opened. The bodies of many godly men and women who had died were raised from the dead. They left the cemetery after Jesus' resurrection. Imagine that, that's weird. Went into the holy city of Jerusalem and appeared to many people. The Roman officer and other soldiers at the crucifixion were terrified by the earthquake and all that had happened. And they said, this man truly was the Son of God. You see, Jesus takes with him who he is into a situation. And even in coming back to life himself, couldn't help but bring others with him. The source of life took on death, and death did not stand a chance. And so any place where the presence of Jesus is, any space that we invite him into, he cannot help bring life, not only in his body in that moment, but to other people as well. And so we sing songs where it says, death couldn't keep you in the ground. We sing I have a king with dominion over death. He holds the keys in his holy, nail-scarred hands. Our resurrected great I am. As part of my job, I stand on stages and I talk to people about Jesus, and it's a huge privilege. And a lot of the time, I'm introducing them to Jesus for the first time. But I do wonder whether people in my position have sometimes done the death of Jesus a bit of a disservice. And I mean that with the greatest respect. Because I realized a few years ago that as someone who follows Jesus, I kind of let like a certain amount of apathy creep into it. That the creator of the universe would die and give his life for me. That coming to know Jesus, this move from death to life, reconnection with the source of life, wasn't just this one event that happened when I was like 14. I put my hand up, box tick, nailed, move on. Now, yes, I am in relationship with Jesus forever from that moment, and all that I have done has been forgiven. I believe that. And yet, I somehow forgot that this is something that does and should and can affect my everyday life. That every single day I live, I exist through the grace of Jesus and who he is and what he's done. And I wonder whether that for some of us, as we hear talks like this, we make the mistake of thinking, well, this is kind of, this is good news for the people who don't know Jesus. But actually, this is good news for every single person. And we sing again and again and again and again, you've rescued me out of the mess I was in. You traded my sorrow for something to sing. Now I'm dancing on a grave that I once lived in. And I wonder whether today, in a moment, we're going to go into singing a song together. But I wonder whether for some of us, actually, the death to life part is God bringing back to life our wonder and our awe for what he has done for us. Because I think to sit and hear that the creator of the universe would do this, can't help but do this because of who he is and feel nothing about that. For those of us who are followers of Jesus, I wonder whether God might want to breathe some life back into that. I wonder whether for some of us, we have a cave. And in that cave is all this stuff: broken relationships, unforgiveness, pain, hurt, apathy, maybe really practical, just broken situations where we need God to breathe life back into it. We need to invite the presence of God in, and God can't help but bring life when he comes into a situation. And that Jesus is standing at the mouth of this cave calling that stuff out that we have worked so hard to push down and hide. And I wonder whether for some of us, we're in a relationship with Jesus, or we would say that we are, but actually we've stepped back into the cave and we've pulled this big boulder across and gone, Sometimes my kids, when I say stuff they don't like, my daughter particularly, she puts her fingers in her ears and just looks at me. And I wonder whether for some of us, we're in this cave with our fingers in our ears going, nope, nuh-uh. And I wonder today whether God says, I want to breathe life back into your relationship with me. Now, in a moment, we're going to sing. And we're going to stop in a moment after that. And there may well be some people in the room who aren't in a relationship with Jesus, who aren't connected to the source of life and love. And in that moment, we're going to give you an opportunity for you guys to make a decision about that again for yourself. But if you are able to stand, I would love to invite you to do that as we sing. And as we go into this song, maybe have a think and a process about, are there things that God would want to breathe life into? Areas of my life where I know that there is this unraveling of life, this area where deep down I know that God is calling that out, calling that attitude out, calling that situation out. And as we do this, as we sing, as we think, it is remembering that God is love and God is life. And because he is love, he will come after you. And because he is life, he is able to save you.